I can do, let me know.
Any initial questions for Steve before we get going?
What crops do you grow? What type of vegetables?
You hear that, Steve?
No, I couldn't.
What are the vegetables you grow on your farm?
What vegetables? In the summer, we grow tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, eggplant. There's 40 different kinds of vegetables we grow all together. Arugula, bok choy, broccoli, cauliflower, chard, several kinds of Asian greens, radishes, daikon radish, lots of squash, summer squash and winter squash, onions, scallions, peas, beans, bitter melon. Anybody know what bitter melon is?
Yes.
It's not a common vegetable, but we have a few customers who really like it. What else do we grow, Chris?
Ginger, turmeric, those are our latest additions.
Yeah, we grew turmeric the first time this year, and I've been growing ginger for several years in the greenhouses. It likes lots of heat, so it does well in the greenhouses here. And that's a pretty good crop for us. Yeah, we buy ginger for $5 a pound, and we grow it, and then we sell the fresh ginger for $20 a pound. So it's pretty good. We sell a lot of our stuff at the farmers market, and we have a CSA that we also sell through. You know what CSA is? It's Community Supported Agriculture.
Yeah, they're familiar with it.
You know what CSA is?
Yes. It's like community supported agriculture. It's what Joshua does. It's a subscription service. You buy in early, or usually at a discount, and then you get a set amount of vegetables per week for a set amount of weeks, and it usually ends up being a good deal for the person who buys in. They get more vegetables in the end than they would have bought otherwise, and the farmer gets an early investment of cash, but they don't have a lot of income, especially in a cold season. We also do like honeybees and composting, large-scale composting on our farm as well. Steve actually heads up the compost. You want to tell him a little bit about the compost too, Steve?
Yeah, the university's food service, they prepare most of the meals from scratch, so they buy a lot of fresh vegetables, and there's waste. You know, the skins and the peels and the bases of the vegetables that people don't want to eat. We compost that. We compost the leftovers. When people take food and they don't eat it all, the plate scrapings goes into the compost. And the dining hall feeds around 600 people at lunch, and it's less than that at supper and breakfast. But they generate 500 or 600 pounds, what's that, 250, 300 kilos a day. And we compost that, mix it with wood chips, and that's our main source of fertility on our farm, is the compost from the university's dining hall. For years, we had a manure spreader that we used for mixing the food waste and the wood chips. That was a low-cost way to get started. Now we have a compost turner that we pull through the piles with the tractor, and it's much more efficient. does a much better job than the manure spreader. But manure spreader works.
Any other final questions before we get going on the lesson? All right, Steve, take it away.
All right. Well, I'd actually like to know a little bit about the students and what they're interested in.
Sure.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah, of course. Any volunteers want to talk about what you want to get out of this course? What you do now? Right here, look at this guy.
We'll have to talk loud because the sound is not that good.
Okay. I have like 4 acres, but I'm concentrated on aquaponics.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I have, we use square meters even instead of square foot. So
You understand.
yes, it's about, I have a greenhouse of, let's call it shade house of 300 square meters for aquaponics, doing mostly lessons. And I'm building now one of 1,000 square meters, also for lessons. And then I do some soil also on 1,500 square meters. It's about four plots of 10 channels of 30 meters. And then we grow from okra to lots of different crops. Tomatoes, kale, do a lot of. We do also, we have like 50 square meter greenhouse microgreens. It's combined with the nursery. And then we have like 200 square meter also of a whirlpool pool. That's where it buries the woods, the trunks, organic matter under the ground, and do your planting on top of it. So that's basically what we do now.
Good.
Well,
my name is Sabina Marquez. I just started with the planting and thought that my uncle.
I'm sorry, you have to speak up. The sound system isn't real good.
Sorry, my name is Sabina Marquez, and I am a newbie. I just started, and the plan is to start a project on the land that was previously from my uncle, and now my cousin has it, and together we're gonna start planting. So I'm just here to gather all information that is necessary and see where I can apply it in the future.
Okay, good.
good one, I suppose.
My name is Joshua. I own a farm with a farm to table restaurant attached to it. And we grow on about 1.5 acres. It's a variety of different crops. And we also have a 30-member CSA that we started last year. And going pretty good.
Great, great.
Hi, my name is Aisha Machena. I have 3 acres land and I'm using around 1 acre. I have around 2,000 square meter that I grow moringa. So you know moringa tree.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear okay, Steve?
Not real well.
Yell at him.
Yeah.
She grows a lot of moringas.
I grow a lot of
Great.
moringa. You hear me?
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Moringa. So I sell them in drugstores, and right now I'm going to export them to Europe. And I grow like a lot of bananas and plantains and a lot of herbs. So I like mostly to grow herbs.
Good, good.
And I want to learn how to, I want to learn more about, especially the soil problems.
Okay, good.
Roel?
Hi, my name is Roel, and I work actually right now at Mama's farm. But eventually in the future, I would like to have something around the house where I grow herbs. Usually, I'm trying to set up something that I can grow at the house, so I can kind of in the future have a company that would go to people's places and turn their gardens into like edible farms, edible gardens, so we can grow food at people's houses. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about all the techniques and all the methods needed in farming and horticulture.
Hey,
Did you hear him, Steve?
Not
I
really.
heard some of it.
Yeah, let's see. I'm going to bring you a little closer to the crowd while they're introducing each other, okay?
Okay, good.
Marco?
Oh, I get back.
My name is Marco Roy. My main crops are papaya and eggplant. I use like 6,000 square meters, and I want to know more about preventing disease like breakouts.
Not listening. You can hear?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear all of that.
Can hear.
But,
You can hear.
All right, let's do it this way. Come to the computer. Speak directly to Steve.
Okay. Hello, my name is Marco Royer.
hi, Marco.
My main crops are papaya and eggplant.
Uh-huh,
I'm planting like 6,000 square meters.
very good.
Okay, and I want to know more about preventing insects and disease.
Insects and disease, okay.
Thank you.
Me? Okay. My name is Melinda. And like 8 years ago, I started planting sorghum the traditional way with the rain season. But it proved not very effective because we have had very low rain seasons the last, I think, 5 years. So it's not very productive. And I thought with not much water, so what I am going to do? So I started to look after systems that you can use with little water. So I started with a permaculture project, and I started growing fruit trees, and it proved very effective. But I want to do more. So and like most, we started with what do you say? With a co-op, and I'm part of that. So I am eager to learn everything I need to know so that it becomes exitoso. Yes. Okay, that's yes. I want to learn about water, water management, and how much water plants need, things like that, and nutrients for plants. That's
Sure.
that's
Listen. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lucien Ramuni.
I just started in the farming business. I don't know too much about it because 5 years ago we started. I'm from the cooperative, the Federation of Credit Unions, and we started assisting agriculture, fishery, and other cooperatives to start cooperatives. And because of the work I was doing, I met with a lot of agriculturists, and that's why I decided to try it on my own and see what I about it. So I'm not about getting a certificate. I'm just about learning as much as possible to give the best support to cooperatives and to my own farm. Yeah. And I'm interested in everything that can help me set up my own farm. Yeah.
All right. Well, good.
Thank you.
Hi, Steve. I'm Sunilio. I've been doing home farming for about 10 years and also teaching. But for me, now it's time to skill up. And it's important to get all the information you need to do this.
Okay, great.
My name is Mira. I am little bit selfish. I want to do fruit trees in my garden, and I'm learning everything I can about permaculture, about syntropic farming. So now this organic farming is also what I want to know, so I can implement them at home.
Very good. Yeah, you have to start at home.
From scratch.
Hi, I'm Roland, and talking about starting at home, I've started to build a creative food forest around my house, and now I'm occupied with setting up educational permaculture and syntropic farming farms as educational and research for education and research purposes. Yes, that's the word, purposes. And I want to learn anything about regenerative farming. The more I know, the better.
Okay,
so
good.
Hi, I'm Julian Juliana. I'm here for learning about organic farming because normally I use insecticides and that kind of thing. And this is new for me, and I'm I need to learn about organic farming.
Very good. Good. Glad to hear.
Hello, my name is Richel Alberto. I have a piece of land at home, and now I will start planting vegetable and fruit trees. And I want to learn not the conventional way, but the new way to do that.
Right.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Shastri Musker. I have a piece of land where we are doing a project for the government to find out about permaculture, how it works here. So that's why whatever course there is about permaculture, organic farming, I will attend to understand more about it so I can practice it on my farm, so we can, at the end, teach other people how to plant organic ways.
Great, good.
Hi, I'm Liliana.
Hi.
I'm planting at home, and I have chickens. That's what I do. And dietitian, bakery, and I like to do farming. That's why I'm here for learning more.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good, good.
Hi, my name is Eric. I have a little dairy farm at home. I like plant, fruit plant, so as mango, maple, golden apple, pineapple, etc. Thank you.
All right. Good.
Else you want?
Roof farmer.
Yeah, you're doing something right now.
Yes, I'm here to observe how they are doing. This is the first time I see everybody in the room, and to learn a little bit more. As you know, I do my thing on the roof of my house. It's doing well, so I like it.
Oh, good. Good.
All right, there we
go.
All right, so there's a lot of diversity in the kinds of farming that you're interested in, and we'll present lots of basic knowledge that you can apply anywhere on any kind of farm, and hopefully later in the course we'll also be able to answer your specific questions on what you want to know about your specific farm. And I know Chris will be working with you very closely on your farms and helping you with that as well. So the first few sessions, we're going to talk about basic biology, about how plants are structured and how they work, because that'll help understanding how we can manage them to make them more productive, to perform the way we want them to perform. And then after that, we'll have some lessons on soil science. So we'll look into the physical structure of the soil, the nutrients that the plants get from the soil, how we can supply those nutrients so the plants have enough, about soil biology, because that's very important, the interaction between the plant roots and the organisms that live in the soil. Then we'll have some lessons on dealing with problem organisms like weeds and disease organisms and insect pests and that kind of thing. So as I said, if there's you have any questions, anything that you'd like me to cover that I'm not, just let me know. So I thought we'd start out the first lesson with seeds, because that's where it all starts when we're farming, is planting the seeds. So so tonight we're going to gain some understanding about how seeds are put together, how they sprout, how they work. And I have a PowerPoint presentation that we'll go through here. So unless there's any questions, we'll get started.
So I have a copy of the PowerPoint. I can make a Google Doc or a Google file to share it with. Does that work for everybody? Yeah? Okay. So then any information that the professors have, he also has a list of some YouTube videos and some readings. I'll make a Google Doc and we'll share everything to there and just add everyone to have access to that folder. The recording, we're recording this right now. I've made a YouTube channel called Curacao ROAP. This will be the first video we post. So as soon as I can get it off my computer and online, this will be available to be viewed. And it's open, so you guys can rewatch it.
I never expected to be a movie star, Chris.
You got the face for it, Steve.
All right, so see if I can. See if we can get this going. There we go. Okay, lesson 1, understanding seeds. So these are some of the words we'll be learning. Don't worry about them at this point, but give you something to look forward to. Cotyledon, embryo, epicotyl, hypocotyl, radical, seed, seed coat. I think you already know what a seed is. Monocot, dicot, germination, emergence, and viability. What is a seed? A seed's a living entity that serves as a bridge between generations of a plant. It's formed in the female parts of the flower after the flower is pollinated, and it contains the plant embryo, baby plant, and the stored food that will allow the plant to grow until it gets above the ground and starts to make its own food through photosynthesis. And a seed's covered by a protective seed coat. Keep it safe. So the embryo has different parts. It contains a root, a stem, and a leaf of a complete plant, but just in a very small embryonic form. The embryo's root is called the radicle. The lower part of the stem is called the hypocotyl, and the upper stem and the leaf are the epicotyl. And there's something else in there. The embryos also have special leaves called cotyledons where the food is stored. And so hypocotyl and epicotyl refers to the cotyledons, where the cotyledons are attached to the embryonic stem. Hypo means below, so the hypocotyl is the part of the stem that's below where the cotyledons are attached, and the epicotyl is the part of the stem that's above where the cotyledons are attached. So we'll see some pictures of this so it'll be clearer. Some seeds also have food stored in the endosperm. So the cotyledons is a place where the food is stored for the plant to grow, and the endosperm also has food for the plant to use to grow. But not all seeds have an endosperm. There are 2 types of seeds because there are 2 main types of flowering plants. They are called monocotyledons and dicotyledons, which is often abbreviated monocots and dicots. Monocots have 1 cotyledon, which makes sense. Mono is 1 and cot stands for cotyledon. So some monocots are maize, wheat, onions, banana, sugarcane, grasses. Those are all monocots. And of course, there are many other plants that are monocots. Dicots have 2 cotyledons. Di is 2, of course. Some dicots that we grow are beans, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and many others. So this is a diagram of seeds. The one on the top is a dicotyledon. It shows the seed split open, so you can see the 2 cotyledons. If you take a bean seed, you can split it in half, and those 2 halves are the 2 cotyledons. And the bottom diagram is a monocotyledon. There's only 1 cotyledon in there. And the monocotyledon has an endosperm. The dicotyledon seeds do not have endosperm. So with the monocotyledon, most of the food for the baby plant is stored in the endosperm. In the dicotyledons, most of the food is stored in the cotyledons themselves. The radicle is the root of the embryo. So you can see where that is located in part of the embryo of the seed. And there's the hypocotyl, the lower part of the stem, and the dicotyledon on the top and the monocotyledon on the bottom. And there's the epicotyl, the upper part of the stem and the leaves of the baby plant. And then the seed coat covers it all. So the functions of each part of the seed, each part has a specific function to ensure that the healthy plant will emerge from the seed. The seed is a living entity which contains the embryo plant and everything necessary for its growth and development. So the radicle, it becomes the first root, and it's almost always the first part of the embryo to emerge from the seed. The hypocotyl develops into the lower stem, and the epicotyl is above the hypocotyl. It develops into the leaves and the upper stem. And the tip of the epicotyl, which has the embryonic leaves, is sometimes called a plumule. The endosperm is the food storage for the embryo, which is found in monocots. The cotyledon is a seed leaf, and it's a place where food is stored for the embryo in dicots. The seed coat surrounds the seed, protects it from injury, protects it from dehydration. So here's a diagram of a seed that's sprouting. First, the root comes out, the primary root, and then secondary roots grow off of the primary root. And the hypocotyl elongates and pushes the cotyledons up above the ground. And the epicotyl form grows up above the cotyledons into the upper part of the stem and the leaves. And in the supplemental information that Chris is making available to you, there's some YouTube videos of time-lapse photography of various seeds sprouting that shows this beautifully, much better than a diagram like this can show. So be sure and watch those videos. So let's review this. Or do you have any questions on this?
No.
No?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, we have a question.
Yeah, when the seed sprouts, which part dies first? When it, let's say it has not rained, you have beans, and you see that the leaf is drying. Are the roots still there?
So if a seed sprouts and there's a lack of rain, what part's dying first? You know, you see the leaves, withering. Is the root still alive?
Yeah, usually the leaves wither first. Yeah, good question. The roots will be down in the soil, and there's usually the soil dries out after the air. You know, because the roots are taking up the soil from the soil, up the water from the soil. They have the first grab on the water, and then the water has to go up to the leaves, and the water is being lost from the leaves. You know, it evaporates into the air from the leaves. So that's where the water is being lost, and they will be the first to feel the drought. Yeah, good question. Any more questions?
Well, yes, can I ask a question? Sure.
Alvin's got a question.
How long does the embryo stay alive in the seed?
How long does the embryo stay alive in the seed?
Average, on average.
An average.
It varies greatly from plant to plant. in an onion seed, it might just be alive for a little more than a year. There have been some seeds that they found in the pyramids in Egypt, and are still alive after thousands of years. So it depends on where it's from, and it also depends on the conditions that the seed is experiencing. You know, cool conditions and dry conditions will prolong the life of a seed. Heat and humidity will shorten the life of a seed. So that's a very important question. You know, so it's always good to keep your seeds stored someplace where it's cool and dry. We keep our seeds in the refrigerator because that's the coolest, driest place we have. And the seeds will last for many years. You know, we have some seeds that we planted after 5 years and they grow just fine. But not all seeds will last that long.
There are charts online that tell you per like plant group or what kind of plant, you know, beans, carrots, okra, whatever, their average length of storage for a decent germination rate. So you can find that online, just kind of searching what we're talking about.
Yeah, and again, it depends a lot on what conditions the seed is stored under. So under ideal conditions, it'll last a long time. Good question, Alvin. Any more questions? All right, so
we got another one, Steve.
Okay.
Marco? How do you know how deep to plant a seed?
Oh yeah, good question. A general rule of thumb is 3 to 4 times the thickness of the seed. So a small seed gets planted shallower, a larger seed gets planted deeper. And the reason is that when the seed sprouts, its only source of food and energy is what's stored in the seed, either in the cotyledons or in the endosperm. And a small seed doesn't have very much food to get the plant up. You know, the plant has to get up through the soil, spread its leaves out, start doing photosynthesis, and then it's making its own food. But it has to get to that point with the food that's stored in the seed. So a larger seed, of course, will have more food stored. So it can get up through a thicker layer of soil.
Yeah.
Right.
Another one?
Yeah. Why do you need to moisture seeds before planting them? While to keep them alive, you need to keep them in a cool and dry place. So when I take them out of fridge, on some packages, they are instructing you to moisture it a few hours before planting. I don't understand that.
Yeah, good. So I was wondering why sometimes it's instructed to soak your seeds before you sow them. You know, you store them in a cool, dry environment, but why would you want to soak your seeds before you plant them?
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that some more later. But basically, seeds need water to germinate. When a seed is dry, it's dormant. It's not. It's alive, but there's no or very little metabolic activity going on. You know, it's not, you know, it's like hibernating. And it needs water for any chemical reactions to take place within the seed. So it can't do anything, it can't grow until it has some water inside of the cells, because they, you know, before it gets water, they're all shriveled up and compact, and they can't do anything. And any activity that takes place within the cells of the plant has to take place with in a moist environment. So the seed has to soak up water before it can start to grow. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Good.
I saw also on a video where they boiled the seed, so like waking up the embryos, so it will not take long to grow. So boil the seed in hot water.
We saw in a video that where they boiled seed to encourage it to germinate. Is that something you could comment on?
There are some seeds of some plants that are very hard to germinate. They have a very hard seed coat. And so hot water might be necessary to get them to germinate. But most seeds would be killed by boiling water. So you shouldn't do that with your tomato seeds. But yeah, there are some tree seeds and other plants that have very hard seed coats, and they need something like that so the water will be able to penetrate into the seed coat, because the seed coat is so hard.
Has to do with the harder seeds, doses of the water.
So that generally has to do with the harder seeds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you could comment about how we do our microgreens. That might be an example of why we do or do not soak seeds.
Yeah. We grow microgreens. Some of our microgreens have large seeds, peas and sunflowers, and we soak those seeds because those large seeds, it helps them get started, and we get a more uniform growth of the seeds and more quick growth of the seeds if we soak them overnight before we plant them. The other microgreens have very small seeds, and they sprout and grow quickly. And I found that it's not really necessary to soak them. They do just fine. We sprinkle them on the soil, cover them lightly, and then water them. We have to keep them moist while they're germinating until they get established and have a root system. But with those, we haven't needed to soak them. Does that make sense?
Our plant on those.
No?
I don't see no difference in soaking with or without soaking. The basics.
The basics. So Barbalina is commenting that in this climate, he hasn't noticed a difference for his microgreens, whether he soaks them or not, on the big seeds.
Yeah.
He thinks the humidity, but you know, it works for him.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. We could do the peas and the sunflower without soaking, but I just found a little faster and more even growth with the soaking. But they do grow without soaking too. So yeah, and that's how I've found out how to grow them. I've just tried this and tried that and see what works and what works better and what works worse. And that's what we've come up for our situation here.
The problem with soaking here is that it can very easily find them growing fungus.
They can get moldy if they soak up here, Steve.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
I mean, the average day is like 88 degrees and 70% humidity here.
Yeah. Our microgreens prefer a lower temperature than that. So good. Yeah, it's important to adapt the practices to what works in your environment. All right, any more questions? So what I want you to do is to practice with this information. So I want you to form into small groups of 3 or 4 people, and then you can, in your group, come up with the answers to these questions.
Groups of 3 should work out for these, and then we can. Are we going to do the germination thing tonight too, Steve?
Yeah. What time is it? How much time do we have?
Technically 2 more hours, but maybe not that long for the first lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's do this exercise. Find it. Here we go. And here's the massage. There we go. So form into your groups and talk about these questions and see what you come up with.
Give you 3 or 4 minutes to talk it over, guys. Run it up, run. Throw it off.
When you take a look at the pictures,
You want to look at the picture? Steve, let's go to the unlabeled slide of the seed. Give them something to say that. Does anyone have a picture of this on their phone or something? So I can remember this? Or have the questions? Or wait a second. Steve, why don't I get a picture of the slide up and I can quiz them and I'll point at it on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, just the unlabeled picture. Bring that one up.
Okay. That one has the answer to one of the questions. Well.
Yeah. Do you want the actual labels on it?
Yeah.
No. Well, it's cheating. For the quiz. All right, they want the words on it, Steve.
Okay.
Yes. Wording.
There we go.
Second question. Second question. Here, I'll pull it up. Alright. The second review question is, what is the function of the cotyledon? The function of the cotyledon. What does the cotyledon do? Here or here? What does that part of the plant do?
Okay.
Talk amongst your group.
Okay, es un
Talk to each other.
tubo, ahí tenés el pulso, absorbiendo su hormona, está endosperma.
Ready? All right. What part of the seed develops into the stem? For next. How is a monocot different from a dicot? How is a monocot different than a dicot?
It's very easy.
Yeah.
When you see the
All right. What protects the seed before it germinates? He's yelling out. What is required for a seed to germinate?
We haven't gotten to that yet.
Yeah, I know. It's on the review list, though. Steve, it looks like the last couple points haven't been covered in this lecture yet.
Yeah, they're covered in the second half of the talk,
Oh, okay. All right.
so they don't have to answer those yet.
All right. Well, we'll come to the last two in a second. All right. Do you want to hear what they have to say, Steve?
Yeah.
All right. Who's got the answer to the first question? What part of the seed becomes the root? Everyone just.
We can do it together.
Nice. Yeah. Good.
What
is? Huh?
I think they know that one.
Yeah, yeah. What is the function of a cotyledon?
The embryo.
To feed the embryo, Steve?
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah, storage of food. Storage of food. Storage of food for the embryo. Yeah, yeah. What part of the seed develops into the stem? Hypocotyl. Hypocotyl.
Yeah, the hypocotyl and also the epicotyl.
And the epicotyl.
Epicotyl also?
Develops into the stem. So they're the top and the bottom of the stem. Does everyone understand why? Yeah? All right. What is a monocot? Why? How is a monocot different from a dicot? What?
One cut the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other one has two.
So one has a single cotyledon.
Yeah.
The other one has two cotyledons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. And what protects the seed before it germinates? Seed coat. Right? Yeah. We're getting seed coat or sugar coat here, Steve.
Uh-huh. All right, good.
All right, there we go. First review.
So, okay. Oops. So now let's talk about the germination process. Germination is the process of the seed starting to grow, and it involves taking up water. And we already talked about why taking up water is important. It involves the activation of chemical and metabolic activity in the seed. It starts to do things, and then the embryo grows. The embryo uses food stored in the cotyledons and endosperm for its growth. Then when the embryo grows out of the seed, it's called a seedling. When the seedling comes up through the surface of the soil, that's called emergence. When the seedling emerges into the light, it forms chlorophyll and turns green. And the chlorophyll uses the light energy through the process of photosynthesis to make food for the seedling. So the leaves take over from the food stored in the seed to continue the growth of the plant. So to germinate, the seed must be alive. That's called seed viability. And for a seed to germinate, the environmental conditions must be suitable, and the seed must not be dormant. So let's look at those three things. So viability is the ability of an embryo to grow. And why would an embryo not be viable? There are several reasons. It may not have been mature when the seed was harvested. So it was not fully formed to the point where it could survive on its own. It may have been damaged by insects or disease or some physical injury, or it may have been exposed to too much heat. Or it may be too old. We already talked about how long you can store seeds, and if they're too old, they won't germinate. So environmental conditions, what environmental conditions does the seed need? The temperature must be within a favorable range, not too hot and not too cold. And different plants require different temperatures. So, a tomato plant likes it to be warm. A cabbage plant likes it to be much cooler. There must be enough water for it to grow. And there must be enough oxygen. So there can be a conflict between water and oxygen. The seed needs both of them. But if there's too much water in your soil or in the potting soil that you're sprouting your seed in, then oxygen will not be able to diffuse into there, and the seed won't have enough oxygen, and it might just rot. So it needs seed, it needs water, but it doesn't need, you don't want to give it too much water or else it will just rot because it doesn't get enough oxygen. So seeds need to breathe just like we do. As long as the seed is dormant and dry, it doesn't need oxygen, but once it starts to grow, it needs oxygen. So seed dormancy. Dormancy prevents some plants from germinating even though the environmental conditions are favorable. So the seed might be viable, the temperature is right, it has enough water and enough oxygen, but it's still not growing because it's dormant. And that can be caused by a hard seed coat that prevents water from moving into the seed. And that one plant was, you would break that dormancy of the hard seed coat by boiling it. Other ways to do that are by scratching the seed coat, rubbing it on a file or on sandpaper, or nicking it with a knife. Dormancy can be caused by a temperature that's too hot or too cold. Lettuce is a crop that grows best in cool temperatures, and if you expose the seeds to temperatures that are too hot, they will go dormant and they won't germinate. Then you can put them in the refrigerator, cool them down again, and then they'll germinate. The cool temperatures will break the dormancy. Other seeds won't grow if it's too cold. Some plants require light to break dormancy and germinate, and others require dark. Most vegetable seeds, it doesn't matter. They'll grow in the light or the dark. But there are some herbs and a few vegetables like lettuce that like to have exposure to light in order to germinate. It could be just a very brief exposure to light, or it could be a longer term exposure. This is also something that might be a problem with weeds, that there are some weeds that require light to germinate, and it could be just a very brief flash of light. And they're genetically programmed to do this because if they're buried deep in the soil, they're not going to have enough energy to get up to the surface and start to grow. But if they're exposed to light, then the seed knows it's close to the surface of the soil, and so that's when it's going to grow. So sometimes if you might not have any weeds in your field, or you might have controlled all the weeds in your field, but then if you turn over the soil, dig in the soil, that might stimulate some more weeds to germinate because they get exposed to light. And there are some herbs that have very tiny seeds, and you just sprinkle them on the surface of the ground and keep them moist. For them to germinate, they have to have the light in order to germinate. Some plants require a period of cold, moist conditions, and others warm, moist conditions to break dormancy. And so in this part of the world, there are a number of plants that require cold, moist conditions. And that's so that they grow in the spring instead of in the fall. You know, the seed falls on the ground, it's moist, but it's warm, and then it goes through a winter experiencing the cold, and that breaks the dormancy. And then in the spring, it warms up again, and then it starts to grow because it doesn't have the dormancy yet anymore. So here's another review. Give me your small groups again and answer these questions.
Good, guys. Good? What are you going to do?
What is the word? What is the word?
Viable. Able to grow. Join the group.
Yeah. Oh,
Unless everybody's answered them already.
All right. Okay.
All right. What are the reasons a seed might not be able to grow or might not be viable? It's too old.
Yeah.
Damaged. Not mature when harvested.
The conditions are not right.
Conditions not right. What? It's too hot or too cold.
Uh-huh.
No water. Oh, the seed coat's too hard. Oxygen, lack of oxygen. Damaged, yep. Lack of light, it's good. Also too much light, maybe? Yep. Good.
It's not mature.
Too much water. Yeah. All right, I think we got it.
Good.
Bring that back up. I don't have that slide on mine, Steve.
Okay. Wrong one.
What are some things that may be necessary to bring a seed out of dormancy? Sunlight, water, the right temperature, oxygen. Yeah. Yep. What environmental conditions are needed for germination? Depends on the seed, the right temp, moisture, light, could be darkness. Yeah. Oxygen, yeah, not too cold, not too warm. Yeah. Think they got it?
I think they've been paying attention.
Yeah. More than our students.
Well, good. So I wanted to give you some experience with checking the viability of seeds. So we're going to do a little project to test the germination of seeds. So I'm going to see if I can arrange this so that you can see what I'm doing here. So I've got a piece of paper towel. I'm going to make it double thickness. And got some organic Luther Hill sweet corn seeds. And sweet corn, is sweet corn a monocot or a dicot?
Someone yelled out monocot, Steve.
Right, that's right. So I'm counting out 20 seeds. Okay, there's 20 seeds. And I'm going to fold over the paper towel and then roll it up. So the seeds are rolled up inside of it. And I'm going to use a rubber band to fasten it together. I'm going to put it in a jar. and add a couple of centimeters of water to the jar. And the water will soak up and get the seed moist, but the seeds are all above the level of water in the jar because, why is that?
No oxygen in the water.
Not enough oxygen in the water.
Good, hooray. So the water is just slowly wicking up the paper towels. Can you see that? And so that's providing enough water so that seeds will germinate, but not so much that it's going to eliminate the oxygen that they need. So we can just let this sit for a week and see how many seeds germinate. So in a week, we'll unroll it. We'll see how many seeds germinate, and every seed that germinates will be 5%. So if 19 of the 20 seeds germinate, that's 95% germination.
Steve, there's being some eyebrows raised at the 1 week sitting there. Can you comment on that?
Some seeds take that long to germinate. Maybe in Curacao they're faster.
You grow fast food.
So your seeds grow faster? Well, we can check it in a few days. Then there's another way to check the germination. There's lots of ways. That's one way. And another way is to get your paper towel wet. I'm dipping it in a jar here. Get it wet. I want it too wet because the seeds need oxygen too. And I've got some H-ball zucchini seeds. And these seeds were harvested in 2012, so they're what, 7 years old? So I don't know if these are going to grow or not. So we'll find out how many of these seeds are viable.
Yeah. So you would do this if you have a bag of seeds and you want to understand, should I plant these seeds or not? You can take a known number of seeds, in this case 20, and each seed, as he said, represents 5%, 100%. So if 19 of 20 germinate, you have a 95% germination rate. If 10 out of 20 germinate, you have a 50% germination rate. So this is a way to find an average amount of seeds that you put in the ground. If I put 500 seeds in the ground, how many on average are going to grow into a plant?
You just extrapolate the amount.
Exactly. This gives you a percentage, and then you apply that percentage to whatever your total amount of seeds are.
So now I'm folding this wet paper towel over so the seeds are all covered. And then I'm going to take a plastic bag, open it up, get it full of air so it has oxygen. And I'm going to put the wet paper towel inside of the plastic bag. With lots of air, so it's all puffed up. Then I can seal that off. And by sealing it off, it'll stay moist in there. So the seeds will stay moist and germinate. And there's enough oxygen in there so that they'll be able to germinate. They'll have, they'll have enough oxygen to germinate. So, would you like to try that yourselves?
No. So there's a comment that placing the seeds in a bag like that down here is different than placing it in the seeds in a bag up here.
All right.
Temperature-wise. Depends on how you put the bag. If I put it near the window, it gets hot.
So, I mean, for now, we're going to be using this room for the next few days, so we'll leave them in a corner here. I don't think they'll be disturbed. This room's usually air conditioned, so it won't be disturbed. But yeah, if we put it in a sealed room with a lot of windows, then we probably cook the seeds and maybe they mold very quickly. But they would also probably germinate much more quickly too. Yes.
So you could try both of these ways and see which one works. And if one doesn't work, then you know. I've actually never done the one with the plastic bag before, so I'm interested to see how that works too. I just found out about that method last week. So, do you have supplies for them, Chris?
Yeah. All right. So we have 3 kinds of seeds: arugula, chives, and tomatoes. I want you guys to form into groups of 3 to 4, and we have our paper towels here. We have our plastic bags, with logs. We really splurged on that one. Rubber bands to seal them up, and we have cups here as well to get or hold water. So if you want to try one method, you want to try the other, you can try both. Each group gets a packet of each kind of seed. So you can try it however you like. Okay, so form your groups. I'll divvy these up into different amounts. One person from your group come up and get your seeds, get the supplies you need.
What about the nuts?
Those are mine. Back off. I'm hungry.
Yeah, hungry.
No, I actually got these appointments. These are just normal seeds. You do? Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, you could bring them. Julian, you could bring them to the next class. We could do a germination test on those. Yeah. We could just start it and see. I mean, whether it's the planting or the seeds you're using or what. It'd be cool to know. Julian grows celery, and I was learning about it today, but his last planting just didn't germinate hardly at all. So he wasn't quite sure why.
Yeah.
So it's a very timely thing to learn.
Yeah.
No.
It's the seeds.
Plant in my stomach.
I want to. Hey.
Oh, I see. I'll bring snacks.
It's
I'm
time.
sorry.
Look what you did.
You're right. We need coffee.
How do you build it up first?
Rubber bands. If you're gonna soak that in the water, you probably want to pour out. Here, if you want to just like lay them. Which method are you doing? So put it, you need to pour some of this out. Some of your seeds are probably pour it's just sitting in water so that it stays Our cups are kind of short, Steve. Could we fold the paper in half and have both ends?
Yeah, it can stick up out of the cup, but you can make it any length you want. The only thing is you don't want any seeds to be underwater.
Yeah. This is what we're running into, Steve. It's just a little tall. It's gonna get.
Yeah, and it flops over.
So we could fold it in half, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll stay for the next couple of days. So we could even check these tomorrow and see what happens. I mean, the arugula is probably gonna. I don't know if that would work. Let me check my bag. I don't have a marker. Not really. I have a pen, but it's not going to stay very well. You write that on the side of the. Marco, I've got a pen. Just one second.
Grupo nunca. No pode ser.
Should have brought my markers. Next time, let's remember markers, Steve.
Yeah. Add that to the supply list for this project.
I don't know if that's. We'll see how well that stays. Joshua, we made sure that he did something like this. Well, so that he worked it. As long as they're out of the water.
Esse aqui próximo, se vamos subir, ah? Aqui não, aqui não. Aqui você consegue, sim.
Well, let's find a corner because I'm going to move this table back. So that it's easy to tell. Yeah, gather it back up. Sit on the table. I love to have some money. It's fast, it's tasty. I like pesto. Yeah, it's just spicy. Like normally it's basil.
Yes.
Spicy. It's either going to get simple here or the one that we're in. I've been so busy trying to get this done.
I know, it's done. And then you chat it out.
You guys have some seeds you want to see from my Bible.
Sí, pues el fondo
Greenhouse is actually Anybody that has a complete cup or bag, let's put them over here. Let's see if I can put them all on top. Yes, might be able to do it. I knew this was going to come. Yes, Steve, do you have other things planned after this?
No, not for tonight.
All right. Yeah, hand them out. Pulling back now is just going to cause problems.
Talking about seats here.
Yeah. I try to germinate some of those sesame seeds.
Okay, Chris. My observation on the second half is over.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Supervisor's taking off?
mostly you the food and see the farm.
That's yours, right?
It is. Want some?
Really?
I think one day.
Yeah, that's the plan. Well, the chairs were supposed to come today, but they weren't available. They're supposed to be available Friday or
Okay, you already bought?
No, they're from a school.
Okay.
So we have the router, we have TV, we have set it up. We have chairs today, we would have done it there. But
You have the display?
yeah, the TV is up there. They brought it right away. So it's gonna take an hour to put it out.
Yeah.
Once we have it.
Everybody needs a guilty to buy another one.
Okay, we'll make sure we have chairs. Because the way things go around here, they'll be here for sure Friday. Maybe they will. No, the chairs.
I was thinking, you could go twice.
Yeah. Well, I know. I saw where there's holding on.
Okay, collective.
Monday morning, if there's, Chris, if we don't get the chairs Monday morning, then we'll find chairs. How we find some chairs Monday if we don't. We're gonna find some. Yeah, we'll get chairs from the schools if not, we'll find some.
Okay. See you. Nice to Bye.
Hey, Alvin.
Even the observation session is full. Bom, passamos.
All right, can we have all the seed packets back up here? If there's any seeds left, let's bring them back up. We'll use them for something. All right, well, we're finishing up our last few experiments, Steve.
Okay.
Any final comments? Anything you'd like to talk about?
Well, we'll see how they do.
Cool. Well, we'll be back in here tomorrow.
Yeah. So if there's time, they could look at some of those videos of the seed sprouting. Otherwise, sometime in the future.
Great. Well, I'll post those tonight before I go to bed. We'll get a Google Doc going and share them with them.
Great. Great.
All right. Well,
If you forget like the seed in the water,
it'll die. Because it has more than enough water to germinate, but it doesn't have, for the metabolic processes, like we need to drink and breathe. So if you really drink water and breathe air when they start to grow.
it has to stand for like 1 week, but it has to stand for 4 nights.
Probably. Seed. If seed's been sitting in water for 4 days, you think it's still alive?
Maybe. Maybe not.
But he's a real nice one.
What's the best way to try to still, put it in the sun and see
Plant it. Put it in soil.
soil where you have a lot of food.
What seed is it? What kind of seed is it?
Oh.
What is it? So maybe, I mean, it's a super, I mean, it's a big tree. Steve?
Yeah.
I don't know how well this is gonna work. This is the tree that it's a seed of.
Uh-huh.
It's
beautiful tree, yeah. Baobab. Well, we could, yeah, plant it and see. I mean, don't let it dry out, because once it's soaking for that long, it's starting to, starting to take up water, and it's starting to be active. And so just keep it going. Give it some air too, put it in some soil and keep it moist.
Okay. Just spray, like spray water or something.
I mean, plant it and keep it moist, but it needs oxygen at this point. At this point, you've pre-soaked it, and the next thing it needs is oxygen to be able to really grow. So if the seed's super hardy and needed have a really thick coat, then you just pre-soaked it really, really well. And once it gets oxygen and the right temperatures, fine, it'll start growing.
You know,
But maybe you oversoaked.
you know what it does to me? Put the seeds in the water, and the minute it cracks open, then we cook it out and put it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not just yet, maybe it's a bit of the effect.
Oh, see, you're talking about 1 minute versus 4 days.
No, I'm not talking about, I'm not talking more than 1 day.
Got it in there for 1 week?
Yeah. After quando dia esse dia que era não,
The radicals coming out.
What kind of seed is it? Give it a try. Tree seeds are harder than vegetable seeds, generally. So try planting it. It's pretty much the only action I take. The only option is to plant it. I think you should bring pictures at this point. Now he wants now. Your initial is a seed, it's in the seed. On top of the cabinet there, I think is our best bet to not be disturbed.
I don't want to compromise my.
I'll come get him in a second. All right, guys. In the back. So I think that's our lesson for the evening. Steve, any final thoughts you'd like to talk about or share?
No, I think this is a good group of students.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow. What's the lesson for tomorrow, Steve?
What's that?
Thursday? What's the lesson for tomorrow, Steve?
We're going to learn about roots and stems tomorrow.
Stems, roots and stems. Alright, well, don't you, Steve. See you.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.